One sec. I know it's a busy schedule, middle of the week for everyone. So thanks again for joining in. So for audience who are not familiar with us, my name is Manas Dasgupta, and I'm the chairperson of the IT and Cybersecurity Expert Committee at BCIC, associated with BCIC for the last 5-6 years. And I'm also, I recently founded a startup called Teksands. We are in talent solutions and products. So we have this webinar today on the world, and we will dive into the world of the fascinating world of Web3, Metaverse, and blockchain. And for that, we have 4 super experts from the industry, practicing experts from their own domains in Web3, Metaverse, and blockchain. We today have Bhutesh, Niroula, Prawesh, Rohit, Jain, and Girish, Nuli. I'll give a short introduction of each of them. So Bhutesh is probably the youngest of all NIT Surat alumni, and he has founded an interior design company called Simply Interiors, and now on the back of that, Bhutesh is now building India's first metaverse on interior designing. So welcome, Bhutesh.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
We also have Rohit. Rohit is a IIT Guwahati alumni, and he has done MBA from Harvard. And in his current role, Rohit is the Chief Investment Officer at CoinDCX, who are India's largest, I think India's largest crypto exchange, Rohit. So Rohit brings in very rich experience in strategic business growth, angel investments, and in his current role is an entrepreneur and investor himself in CoinDCX. We also have Prawesh. Prawesh is leading the blockchain practice at IBM Consulting India, and he's responsible for growing the blockchain capability of IBM at the GICs in India. He's got almost 25 years in the industry and last 15 years with IBM. Through various senior roles in delivery and growth, and he's also a IIT Kharagpur alumni. And last but not the least, Girish is a multifaceted entrepreneur himself, and is also associated with us BCIC for the last 4 years, 4-5 years almost. Girish?
Yeah. I think about 5 years.
Yeah, right. So Girish has founded multiple companies. He has founded Inficert.com. Inficert is a certificate and document management platform on blockchain. And he is also building InfiBridge. InfiBridge is an open source cryptocurrency wallet that he plans to launch recently, very soon. And Girish also is a commercial pilot license holder and is a avid flyer as well. And in his spare time, he also tinkers with drones as well. All right, so we've got a lot of talent here with us today. I would also like to express my thanks at the onset to the BCIC team. Dr. Devarajan is here with us. Dr. Devarajan is the Senior Vice President of BCIC. So Dr. Devarajan, maybe a minute for you to welcome the speakers and the audience.
Yes, yeah. I think on behalf of Bangalore Chamber of Commerce, we really welcome all of you for this excellent seminar. Bangalore Chamber of Commerce is around 45 years in existence, and we have more than 800 members from different organizations, from Toyota, Volvo, from small scale industries to the SMEs. We have more than 200 seminars this year, and we look forward for a lot of interaction in terms of sustainability, EV, digital, you name anything in the requirement as an industry. We are trying to work on it, working with the government on the many policies discussion on the budgeting areas, manufacturing, infrastructure development. So I think we have a huge set of activities which will help the members. And definitely today's session will be much more important because it's going to help all our members understand what's happening. And I think I should thank Manas. Excellent members you have brought in together to share with us, and we look forward for a lot of good interactive discussion of learning and probably later on sharing as we go forward and the new technology coming in. Like what Rabindra also mentioned, probably we should release as a part of a combined booklet to all our members who are in our group, and probably have a face-to-face seminar the coming year. So looking forward for a lot of good discussions, and I thank every one of you, Girish, Bhutesh, Rohit, Prawesh, and Manas for organizing this. Thank you very much, and looking forward for a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So I'll take the audience through the agenda for today. So we have Girish, Rohit, Prawesh, and Bhutesh. So at the beginning, we will hear from Girish on understanding the Web3 ecosystem, followed by Rohit talking to us about the industry trajectory on Web3 and crypto. Then after that, Prawesh will speak about blockchain adoption in enterprises and various use cases. Followed by Girish will come back again to talk about digital identity and Web3. And finishing off with Bhutesh talking about blockchain integration with Metaverse and AI. So that being the agenda, I would like to call upon Girish to share his views on the structure of the Web3 ecosystem. So we've gone through. So when I started my career about 23, 24 years back, that was the age of Web 1. So we had static websites, and email started coming in, and we were very happy. We had email and Hotmail coming in. So we started from there. We had our transition through Facebook, wikis, and social media, etc., leading us through Web 2. And now we have Web 3 powered by AR, VR, Metaverse, blockchain, etc. Very interesting set of technologies. So Girish, over to you to talk us more about that.
Yeah, thank you, Manas. So I'll quickly share my screen. Just give me a second. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I think, Manas, you quickly covered a couple of my slides. So, it's difficult to understand Web3 without knowing what is Web 1 and Web 2. So just a very quick introduction. So Web 1, as Manas already mentioned, if we go back to the 90s, that is when the whole internet revolution started. And we had pure static websites, right, where we could just consume content. Right, so people would create these blog kind of sites where there were a few links and they would share their thoughts and expertise, and you could just click through. And this phase was pretty brief, and immediately there was Web 2 that came into picture, which was much more interactive. Whatever we see today in terms of some of the sites that you use, like YouTube, Facebook, Google, these are all part of Web 2. Where the interaction happens both ways. Okay, so instead of just having static content, you have applications where you can talk with each other, look at what you can do with WhatsApp, what you can do with TikTok or Facebook. This Web 2 concept brought in user-generated content and a tremendous amount of content at that. Just imagine how many videos are being uploaded on YouTube, or how many posts are being done on Facebook or Instagram and sites like this. So this really revolutionized the way we look at how to use the internet, how to be more productive, as well as how to have good entertainment experience, right? So this is what Web 2 was all about. And then of course, Web 2, you cannot really say, you cannot just look only at the web. The smartphone came in with the introduction of iPhone. There was a huge revolution. And with iPhone, I think that really opened up the concept of app stores and apps. And today, most of us, we carry literally a laptop kind of or a desktop kind of power in our hands through our phones. Many people are just using phones nowadays without even using a laptop or a desktop. Maybe they use a tablet at most, and they have a phone on which you can do literally everything that you can do with a laptop. So that is what the Web 2 world is all about, right? And it's been great. But there have been some challenges, some issues which Web 3 tries to solve, and one of them is censorship. Now this is very important. What happens in Web 2 is that the control of content or the control of the systems is purely centralized, right? So let's say you make a bad post on Facebook, it's immediately taken down. So there is someone behind at Facebook who is monitoring the content you are posting and deciding whether it's good or bad. So this form of censorship is a negative with Web 2. Positive in a way, so that you don't put a lot of bad content out there, but negative in the sense that there are other people who can control what you can express online, right? And one of the systems of Web 2, which is banking, okay, is heavily centralized. So what happened is that today, if you look at transferring some money through your bank or through Paytm or PhonePe, all these transactions go through a central entity. And the bank can decide whether can you operate your account, can you make funds transfer or not. So this is a very strong form of government oversight or control over your transactions. To overcome this, the whole Web3 revolution started with Bitcoin. Okay, that is where I would like to see this kicking off. So the idea started with a financial use case, in that how can we transact on a peer-to-peer basis? How can I send you money or you send me money without a third party trying to control it? Okay, so that is where the whole idea of Web3 came into existence, where we say it is peer-to-peer driven and it is fully decentralized. There is no centralized authority. People are still confused. When I talk to people, they still ask me which company owns Bitcoin. Okay, or who is the CEO of Bitcoin? That's a funny meme that happens on Twitter. So there is no such thing. Bitcoin is powered by the community. Okay, most cryptocurrencies, they're all powered by the community. They are peer-to-peer. There are really no central authorities at a high level. Okay, if you go deeper, there are some form of controls that come in, but at the conceptual level, it is decentralized. Okay, you have as much power as the other person. There is no one single person who can control everything. And this is enabled through a consensus mechanism. Okay, it is basically saying, as a community, let's say 50 of us are, trying to transact, and majority of us agree that a transaction is valid, then it's valid. That is a consensus. So what is happening here is that this concept of decentralization and peer-to-peer interactions is giving us the ability to come out with certain use cases which we have not thought of before. Okay, a huge number of use cases which are still evolving, and some of them are really taken off very well, and some of them are still evolving, and people are experimenting and trying to find out what can really work here and what cannot work. Some of the key concepts in Web3, especially on the blockchain and decentralization side, which is enabling new use cases, is one, tokenization. The second is self-sovereign identity and decentralized autonomous organizations. What I'm going to do in this session is that I will talk about tokenization a little bit, and there's a upcoming session on identity where we will go more into what kind of use cases are enabled, as a decentralized self-sovereign identity concept. So what is tokenization and why is it creating such a big revolution in Web3? If you look at money today, you have money in your wallet. And what is that money? Let's say you have 100 rupees in your wallet. It is what we call as a fungible token. The 100 rupees in my wallet has the exact same value as the 100 rupees in your wallet. Correct? So if we exchange the 100 rupees, nothing has really happened. So we call these as fungible tokens. Now what happened is, after Bitcoin, Ethereum came up, and Ethereum is another network similar to Bitcoin, but it had some interesting concepts where you could represent assets as code on the blockchain. Okay, so when we talk of blockchain, we are talking of a decentralized system where we are talking of peer-to-peer money, peer-to-peer transactions, and things like that. But now you start thinking in terms of, can we have code running on a peer-to-peer basis? Okay, take the example of Facebook. Today, when you interact with Facebook, you go to facebook.com or you use the Facebook app and you do some transactions, right? You post some content or you read some articles. All this is coming from the Facebook server. The code which is executing this entire process is running on Facebook server. Now imagine the same thing being decentralized. Imagine that there are no more central servers, there is no more central Facebook. If you have a copy of Ethereum and I have a copy of Ethereum, the code which you put on this network is running locally on each of our machines. Okay, so this completely decentralizes the system. And when we talk of tokenization, these tokens are running as a decentralized system on top of a blockchain. Okay, so fungible tokens are primarily currencies, carbon credits, which I'll talk a little bit later. But if you look at Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, these are all currencies and these are all a form of fungible tokens. One Bitcoin that I have is the same as one Bitcoin that you have. If we exchange it, nothing is different between each of these Bitcoins. The second concept is non-fungible tokens. Now, non-fungible tokens are actually enabling a lot of new use cases on the blockchain, okay, in Web3. Think of non-fungible tokens as anything that is unique, such as art, right? Every painting is unique, or land. Every piece of land is unique. Credentials, your degree is not the same as someone else's degree, right? It's unique to you or unique to me. So these are the things where each item is unique, and we call this as a non-fungible token. Okay, so this token economy, the token in the form of either fungible tokens or non-fungible tokens, these are primarily driving most of the Web3 use cases. Okay, now you see a lot of new things coming up. I'll on the next slide, I'll show some of the use cases that people are working with, and you can see that it's enabling a huge amount of experimentation, new concepts that are coming up. So just to give a quick overview, cryptocurrency, I think we spoke about it, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Litecoin. I'm sure many of you have heard about these. Many of you have used these as well, right? One major use case that has really picked up in Web3 is decentralized finance. Now, decentralized finance is something where today finance is centralized. It is controlled by banks or by the central banking authorities like the RBI. But what happens in Web3 is that there is no central authority, as I spoke earlier. We are talking of use cases like lending, borrowing, payments, all happening on a peer-to-peer basis. This is extremely powerful, and this is why a lot of governments are actually scared of the Web3 ecosystem, or rather scared of what's happening with DeFi, because they cannot control it easily, but this opens up a huge amount of very unique use cases. Then the other part is voting and governance. This is also a very important use case because today we see so many issues with voting. When you vote for something, it's very easy to tamper with the systems. There is a central authority who controls these, who holds the votes that are coming in, and they can easily make changes to it, right? So a lot of projects are working on improving this by using blockchain. Okay, then there are concepts such as energy trading, where you have energy marketplaces and carbon credits. Let's say some very interesting use cases came up earlier. This was in 2018 and 19. If a local community is producing some energy through renewable sources, okay, let's say you have a set of solar panels that are running in a community, and some amount of energy is produced in excess to what is really required. Now what happens is that there is another community, let's say next door, which is not producing sufficient amount of renewable energy, and they would like to buy it from you. Now, one way they can do it is go through the central grid and then try to, buy energy from there. Or the alternate option is that they simply buy it from the other community, which is producing excess energy. So these kind of energy marketplaces are becoming, good use cases for decentralization. Then there is self-sovereign identity. I'll talk about this in the next session that I have. We will skip it for now. One of the biggest use cases apart from decentralized finance is non-fungible tokens that we spoke of. People are trying to put credentials, certificates, licenses, all on the blockchain. One very important concept here is that you hold these credentials in your wallets. And we will talk about this in the identity session as well. So instead of a central authority, like let's say in India, if you have an Aadhaar card, the Aadhaar authority holds this data. Whereas in the case of peer-to-peer or a blockchain kind of a system, you hold this in your own wallets. You control your data. Okay, so which is completely turning the existing system upside down. All right. Health records is one big use case where instead of having central, hospitals or centralized systems holding your health records, you can hold it yourself and you share it with relevant parties where required. Land records is a big use case. Many governments are already experimenting with putting land records on the blockchain so that it becomes completely transparent and tamper-proof. Dubai has already done a lot of experimentation with these kind of use cases. I think we are also looking at some of these use cases slowly coming into India as well. The new use case that's come up is regenerative finance, also known as ReFi. So DeFi was the buzzword, NFT became a buzzword. Now we are looking at ReFi as another buzzword that's come up. Basically, you are trying to create sustainable projects using blockchain so that more people come in and get rewarded in the form of tokens. So one example is, let's say as a company, if you wish to reward your users for consuming less energy, okay, by sharing energy with other people, right? There, the company can incentivize people by issuing certain tokens. And as you reduce your energy consumption, you are rewarded with more such tokens. And these tokens tend to have some value. Now I'm using a very centralized concept by saying a company, but there are concepts like decentralized autonomous organizations, which is a group of users coming together to start a concept without having a central, a pyramid structure kind of an organization, which decides who gets rewarded and who does not get rewarded. Instead, the community as a whole decides through code on who gets rewarded based on their actions. So these are some of the new concepts that are coming up. And I think over the next few sessions, we have talks around AI and the Metaverse, which is also picking up really well in the Web3 ecosystem. In fact, they're becoming the next buzzwords after DeFi, NFTs. We are looking at Metaverse and AI. So I think we should move forward and go deeper into the other sessions to understand really how the whole Web3 ecosystem is evolving. So I will stop here, and if you have any questions for this session, we'll be happy to take it. Manas?
Hi, Girish. Yeah, thank you for that, Girish. Good list of use cases, and all of them are in some way or the other are creating, making significant transformations. So we will, so for the audience, if you have any question, you can write down in the chat box, and we will relay that to the speakers. And at any point of time, you can write down your questions, and after the speech, we can answer those. All right. So yeah, so I mean, Girish, one question from my side probably is, say, supply chain is a very important, I mean, given the kind of members BCIC has, a lot of manufacturing, automotive, aerospace kind of companies, And for them, supply chain is very, very important. So how do you think Web3 is going to help in creating some transformational impact in them, in these domains?
Yeah, that's actually a very, very good question and a very good use case as well for Web3 and blockchain. Because today the supply chain has so many constraints, right? Especially if you look at the international supply chains. You have the manufacturing unit, then you have the transport agents, then you have the customs agents, and then the shipping companies. So the whole chain is kind of fragmented, okay? And one of the earlier use cases which a lot of big companies, including IBM, is working on, is that can we kind of make this more efficient, okay, by leveraging technologies like blockchain. There is one is each organization in the supply chain has certain information which is confidential to itself, which remains centralized, and it will continue to remain centralized on their systems. But when you interact with the broader ecosystem, when you're interacting with shipping agents, when you're interacting with customs departments, you can have a common layer which shares information in a decentralized manner and which benefits all the participants in the ecosystem. So for example, a manufacturer can publish on the blockchain, let's say, there's a consortium of shipping companies, manufacturing companies, and the consumer companies. If one of these companies publishes information on the shared ledger, okay, we are talking of information outside the organization, that immediately goes to the customs guys, it immediately goes to, the shipping companies as well as maybe the consumer, the importing company. So this brings a lot of efficiency in the whole process. And that is where people are trying to work out how best can we leverage blockchain.
Okay, thanks, Girish. So we will kind of change that topic a little bit and go to Rohit. Rohit, you were there?
Hey, Manas. Yeah.
Hi. All right. Okay. So Rohit, over to you to talk about the trajectory, the industry trajectory of Web3, and especially focusing on crypto. I mean, crypto has been the darling of the world in a lot of news all over the world, starting with Bitcoin, got everybody's fancy. It has gone through its own ups and downs in different parts of the world, including India. But let us hear from you as to how do you see its panning out in the next few years, with probably an Indian context as well as a global context.
Sure, Manas. Manas, let me just maybe share my screen. Give me a second. I'm just trying to figure out where I can share my screen from. Share, yeah.
There should be a share button, open share tray.
There is, but somehow it's not letting me share. There is a permission. Manas, I'm just going to have to rejoin. Just give me a second.
And yeah, you are a presenter, so you should be. Yeah, that's fine. That's okay. Yeah, you are back in.
Okay, cool. Now let me just start resharing my screen again. It just required me to change some permission.
All right, so that's a MacBook story.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so when you change the permission, you have to rejoin.
Correct. So we typically don't end up using Microsoft Teams. Sorry, just give me a second. I'm just trying to, the interface is, I'm trying to figure out where to share the share screen share. Okay. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. You're able to see the presentation, right?
Yeah. You can go on full screen. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Over to you, Rohit.
Okay. Thanks, Manas. Manas, what I'll do is instead of jumping directly into cryptos and spending too much time talking about crypto and crypto coins. Typically, when people say crypto, what they really mean is crypto coins. Instead of jumping directly into that and spending too much time talking about that, I thought I'll talk a little bit more at a more fundamental level, because crypto is just a small enabler of the entire Web3 space, and the excitement around a currency should be driven by the fundamentals. So I thought I'll spend a little bit more time around the fundamentals. But then if folks have questions around cryptocurrencies and at least my personal view there, and everyone will have their own view, I'm happy to share that as well. But maybe spend a little bit more time on fundamentals in this presentation. And I'm going to start by building a little bit on what Girish was saying and just talk a little bit about the evolution of Web3 and the absolute basic building blocks of Web3. And then what I'll do is that'll be the first section. The next section and the final section of the presentation will be more around some new and emerging trends and some areas where we see some startups emerging in the more, in the last couple of months or so. So starting with the basics, blockchain, as Girish had mentioned, had started with essentially Bitcoin. And Bitcoin and essentially blockchain is nothing but a distributed, secure digital ledger. Now, this sounds like a mouthful, which is a distributed, secure digital ledger, but the concept is actually very simple. When we started off 200 years back, we had physical ledgers, which is essentially a diary, which people maintain. If Manas, if you gave me $100, we would record that in a physical ledger in a diary. And that entry would be immutable. Immutable means that in this context, it means no one can change it, no one can dispute it once it's entered into a physical diary. So we started with physical ledgers. Then we moved on to digital ledgers. Digital ledgers are nothing but databases. The only challenge or a key construct of these digital ledgers was that you needed a centralized entity to maintain the sanctity of this digital ledger. So for example, Airbnb will maintain their own database, Uber will maintain their own database, so on and so forth. So we evolved to digital ledgers from physical ledgers, but you needed a centralized entity to manage it. Blockchain is nothing but a distributed digital ledger. And essentially the way it functions is you don't need a centralized entity to be managing the sanctity of this digital ledger. It can be, the sanctity is maintained even in a distributed manner. So you don't need that reliance and that trust on one centralized entity. It is fairly distributed. And the way they achieve this is actually using some very, very simple concepts. You essentially have validators and multiple validators come together to validate a transaction. And using simple concepts of game theory and public-private key, you're able to ensure security of this distributed digital ledger. So that's what a blockchain essentially is, right? Which is a distributed, secure digital ledger. It's a very simple concept. And the first kind of blockchain was Bitcoin. And the way to really think about Bitcoin is it was a database. It was a pure and simple database like we just discussed, except that it was distributed. And that came out with the white paper in 2009, Satoshi Nakamura's paper. The next innovation in the Web3 space was Ethereum. And Ethereum, what it does is, again, it is the next layer on top of this database layer. So it still uses the underlying blockchain technology. But where the innovation that Ethereum brought to the table was that you could now store contract in this database on this blockchain. And they came up with something called an Ethereum virtual machine, which is in short form as EVM, which could actually run this code. So essentially, in essence, what happened was Ethereum created the compute layer, while Bitcoin created the database layer, Ethereum created the compute layer. And that's really how I think about Web3. Web3 is nothing but a distributed computer. And because it's a distributed compute environment, globally distributed compute environment, there are all sorts of use cases that can be built on top of it without necessarily requiring a centralized entity to manage it. So that is the basics of Web3 and the basic building blocks of Web3, starting with Bitcoin as the database layer and Ethereum as the compute layer. Since then, this ecosystem has completely exploded, and literally every week or every day you hear of new startups coming in. It's become a very, very crowded space, but the basics still remain the same. This is just a quick snapshot of some of the use cases that we are seeing. But again, at a very high level, there are three big boxes over here. On the left, you have a DeFi box, and on the top right, you have a gaming NFT box. On the bottom right, you have an NFT box. The reason why I've shown this as an example is that Web3 is still on day one of its development. I'd say Web3 is where Web2 was in the early 1990s. It hasn't even hit the late 1990s yet. It's still in the early 1990s of Web2. And in the early era of 1990s of Web2, what was being developed? Routers were being developed, HTML, TCP, IP, HTTP kind of bare bones protocols were being developed. Very, very initial use cases were beginning to emerge. So we're still in absolute day one of the emergence of Web3, and at least three areas where we found some initial product market fit, and I'll call it really initial product market fit, is DeFi on the left-hand side, gaming and NFT on the right-hand side. Just to do a quick double click on DeFi, what you'll find is that there are multiple, for all of the use cases that you can think of in TradFi. When I say TradFi, I mean traditional finance, which is the financial industry that we're all used to, banks, NBFCs, fintechs, etc. That's all within the gambit of TradFi. Now, for every business in TradFi, the first use case which has been gotten to initial product market fit is DeFi, which is decentralized finance, and you have an equivalent Web3 version of a fair number of traditional financial institutions. So what you see over here are stable coins, which is kind of a currency, lending, borrowing, exchanges, derivatives, the data layer, the asset management industry. All of these industries have a DeFi equivalent to it. And even when we talk about DeFi and Web3, there are two kinds of business models. You have decentralized business models and you have centralized business models. In a centralized business model, CoinDCX is a centralized entity. So it's one company managing the exchange. But then you have decentralized exchanges like DYDX, Uniswap, etc. as well, where there is no one company, very similar to what Girish was mentioning. You don't have one company which manages that protocol. Just to take one example over here, when you look at the exchanges row, so Robinhood in the US, which is of course a centralized entity which enables buying and selling of traditional equity. Very similar to that in crypto, you have Uniswap, which is a decentralized entity, Coinbase, which is a centralized entity. And CoinDCX is very much like Coinbase in that sense. But that's just one example of exchanges. Very similar to that, you're now having use cases in lending, borrowing, derivatives, asset management. Heck, you're even having use cases in currency. When you look at the first row, which is stable coins, these are essentially a form of currency in some sense. They're essentially pegged to an underlying asset. That underlying asset so far is typically USD, the dollar, but essentially it's a representation of USD on the blockchain. So that's just to give you a sense of, how, DeFi is getting to initial product market fit. We are beginning to see traditional use cases being built on top of Web3 and on top of blockchain. And the advantage of being built on top of blockchain, and we can chat more about it, is efficiency. So our fundamental thesis is that it's not like the entire world is going to move to Web3. There are going to be use cases which will give a 10x better customer experience or a 100x better customer experience. And only those use cases will move to Web3. The use cases where you get a better and more convenient customer experience in a Web2 manner, they will continue to remain in the Web2 space. Let me skip over. So, again, not only in DeFi, but Chrome has an equivalent to Brave in the Web3 space. Spotify has an equivalent in Audius. YouTube has an equivalent in Odyssey. So a lot of Web2 use cases are being experimented in the Web3 space. And I think we're still trying to figure out if Brave, Audius, and Odyssey can give a better customer experience than what Chrome, Spotify, and YouTube have been able to give. And not only that, but traditional players also getting into the space. The Visas of the world and the Stripes of the world, the Fidelities of the world, all of them are getting into the Web3 space. So it's not an experiment happening in a small corner of the world with a few thousand developers anymore. It's getting serious attention. As far as trends are concerned, I think there are a few trends that I'd like to talk about. Won't go into too much detail, but just to keep it at a high level. One big trend is that we do think that mass adoption is going to really start in the next bull run. So every bull run, you see the emergence of, or there is a different factor which drives every bull run in the crypto market. We had a pretty strong bull run in 2015, 16, and parts of 2017. 2017 went through a bear market. Then we had a bull run all the way through 2019, had a little bit of a bear market in 2019. For the last, we had another bull run for a few years, and 2022 was clearly a bear market, and we still remain in that bear market. But this is the nature of innovation. This is the nature of any industry. You go through cycles, and something as innovative as crypto and Web3 was never meant to be up and up and up. You were always meant to have. So the long-term secular trend is trending upwards, but you will have local minima, local maxima along the way. But that shouldn't deter you, or as long as you have an underlying belief in the underlying technology. But we believe that the next bull run, and each bull run is driven by some trend, drives every bull run. Our belief is that the next bull run is going to be driven by and will also be fueled by mass adoption in the Web3 space. There are some key challenges that need to be solved to get to that mass adoption. Again, keeping it at a high level. One is the UI UX. So the UI UX today in Web3 is extremely difficult for the masses to adopt. There is a significant amount of work happening to improve the UI UX. Now, the UI UX challenge, just to point out, is it's not a UI UX problem in the typical sense of the word. It's actually a very deep technology problem, which is why the user experience is what it is in the Web3 space. But there are companies working on solving for those technology problems to give a significantly better user experience. I think that is going to be the biggest driver of adoption of Web3 amongst the masses. The second is, of course, Web3 native use cases. Today we see, there are just 3 industries where we are beginning to see initial product market fit, which is DeFi, gaming, NFT. But we think that we will see a lot more Web3 native use cases come up as well. And number 3, a lot of Web2 companies will also start offering certain Web3 features. In fact, our belief is that literally every technology company will leverage blockchain in some part of their tech stack at some point or the other. Wherever blockchain and related technologies brings efficiency to them, even at the back end, even if it's not customer facing, we believe every Web2 company will use some components of blockchain and Web3 technologies. So that's one big trend that we are super excited about. And, we as a company are working towards it. And there are several companies who are kind of working towards it as well. Talking about, and this will be the last slide, but just talking about some trends in these 3 spaces, which is DeFi, gaming and NFT, and infra and data. In DeFi, like I mentioned, we are beginning to see Web3 use cases in pretty much every kind of use case that exists in traditional finance. We've seen that innovation happening since 2017. So in some ways, it's been 6 years. Now, one of the first areas where we saw that innovation was in decentralized exchanges like Uniswap. Now, people believe that, and my view there is that even though we've been seeing innovation in that space for the last 6 years, it's still absolutely day one, or I would actually say day 0. We're still seeing so much innovation happening in spaces which even the Web3 community believes to be, a done deal. Even the Web3 community believes that a lot of that innovation has already happened and will not continue to happen any further. But even with exchanges, we are seeing a lot of innovation happening now. Order book based DEXs, when I say DEX, it's a decentralized exchange. Order books DEXs are coming out. You're beginning to get solutions around traditional options and structured finance. When I say vault, it is essentially structured financial products, which have typically been available to HNIs through the likes of Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan. But now those kind of structured financial products are being available to retail investors in a programmatic manner with, single click entry, single click exit, no kind of loading fee, no inconvenience of having to deal with middlemen and negotiating things with them. Very, very low cost, very efficient. So those are some trends in the DeFi space. In the gaming and NFT space, if I were to break both of them down separately, number one, I think just as social and e-commerce were the driver which led to internet adoption, so when you think about all the way from the 2000s until today, the 2 broad kind of industries which led to Web2 adoption and internet adoption were really social and e-commerce. We believe that the sector that will lead to Web3 adoption and mass adoption will possibly be gaming, or gaming will be one of those industries which will certainly lead to mass adoption. So that's the importance of gaming in this industry. That said, I think we're still in the early days of Web3 games. So CoinDCX and CoinDCX Ventures, which is a VC firm in the Web3 space. What we do is we don't invest in the game per se today, but there's a lot of innovation happening in the infra space around gaming. That's where we spend a lot of our time, and that's where we invest a lot. Even within NFTs, NFTs saw a huge boom in 2019, 2020, 2021. But the art-related NFTs really haven't sustained their fanfare in some sense. But there are other pockets of NFTs where we are still seeing fairly sticky traction. Especially when it comes to tokenization or fantasy sports. And Girish was talking a little bit about tokenization as well. So there we are certainly seeing strong adoption of the NFT technology. But the technology is very, very strong and very sound, despite what's happened with art-based NFTs. And even on the infra and data layer, there is just so much work happening there. And just keeping it at a high level, even when you think about the evolution of Web 2, at every stage of the evolution of Web 2, there were different infra problems that needed to be solved. So very similarly in Web 3, there are very different infra problems that need to be solved and emerge every year. So the problem statement changes every year. Problem statement over the next 1 or 2 years is really going to be scale. Up till now, blockchains weren't able to handle scale. They'd solved for decentralization, trust in a decentralized environment, etc. They solved for the basic premise of blockchain, but they weren't really scalable. They were limited by their underlying blockchain. But with layer 2s and other innovation in the blockchain space, scale has been solved to a large extent. Now, when scale gets solved and hundreds of millions of customers come, TP transactions per second increase significantly, then there are new set of challenges which come up, around data, for example. In the Web 2 space, just taking a corollary from Web 2, in the Web 2 space, the data industry did not exist or it was in its very, very nascent form, until 2008, 2009, 2010. Before that, you had databases and more complicated databases, but the data science industry, data warehouses, data lakes, all the technology around that, all the expertise around that did not exist. All of that came up in the late 2000s once data really exploded. So Web3, we believe, is going to go through that kind of transition, and we will now require solutions that can handle that kind of scale. So let me pause there. I think it was a little dense. We went into a lot of detail and nooks and corners of Web3. So let me just pause there in case anyone has questions, thoughts.
Sure. Thanks for that, Rohit. Personally, I have a quick question. On the DeFi side, if you talk about solution that will have a mass market impact, like say, for instance, payments or for instance, foreign remittances, do you think use cases being built? I mean, there were certain use cases that were experimented on. Do you think some of them have taken off or can take off in near future?
Right. So, two thoughts there. Number one is, if you look at the underlying tech, there is significant improvement to the current financial system. And particularly when you talk about remittances, today, the way remittances happen is that there is a cash settlement and a reconciliation process at the back end. So even if you and I are able to immediately transact using UPI, my bank being, let's say, Kotak, yours being Axis, but at the back end, Kotak and Axis at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, through a Nostro Vostro account are required to settle that transaction that you and I did immediately. So there is almost while it isn't a physical settlement of transaction, there is, there are failure rates, there is a reconciliation process, there is an entire settlement machinery that works at the back end when you and I transact 10 rupees. Now, when you move that transaction between you and me for 10 rupees onto the blockchain, that transaction is instant. It's final. The finality is an instant and it's irrefutable. No one can deny it. No one can challenge it. So the efficiency that blockchain brings to traditional finance is huge, which is why RBI has launched their e-rupee initiative and their CBDC. So their first implementation of their CBDC, if you read their what they've put out there in the public, their implementation of CBDC is a wholesale version of CBDC. What they mean as a wholesale version of CBDC is they're essentially using blockchain technology for instant settlement between bank transactions. So even RBI is using blockchain technologies, and similarly central governments and central banks across the world are experimenting with their own versions of CBDCs. Now, starting from there, can we build remittances and payments on there? We can absolutely build it. The technology very, very seamlessly allows it. I think remittances and payments, though, is more a policy question. It's less a technology question. Technology can certainly make it very, very efficient. but there are other policy considerations and regulatory consideration and other macro considerations which the government has, and rightfully so, around the security of the currency, outflow of capital from the currency, and general capital controls, which is very important for the economic welfare of a country, which is where policy kind of comes in. But the technology is certainly there. Does that answer your question?
Can't hear you.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so definitely answers my question. Yeah, I think it's going to take a bit of time. So you have rightly said that it's a policy question, the question of security, and also most importantly, who is going to do it and how the payment and remittances thing is going to play out, because there is a whole infrastructure with Aadhaar that is being built, and then any blockchain-based payment mechanism is going to unsettle that that infrastructure and all of the reconciliation, reporting, etc., everything has to be changed. So I have a CBDC wallet and there is 100 rupees in it. But since I put that 100 rupees, I have no idea what to do with it.
Right. No, I hear you.
Right.
You know, Manas, even 5 years back, no one could have imagined that I'd be able to do a digital transaction with, you know, the pawn shop down the road, and people will be accepting UPI transactions in every nook and corner of the country. But lo and behold, you know, we are able to do it today. Our view is that in a couple of years, this is going to go through the next phase of revolutionary change, not incremental, but revolutionary change.
Absolutely. And one thing definitely a lot of us ordinary citizens are looking forward to is land record transformation through blockchain. If that happens, that's going to be a whole lot of huge transformation in people's lives with the kind of disputes that we keep on having on properties.
Correct.
All
correct.
right. We move over to Prawesh. Prawesh, welcome. And over to you to talk about enterprise transformations and use cases on blockchain.
Okay, thank you very much, Manas. Let me try sharing my presentation. A second. Hope you are able to see my presentation.
Yeah.
Are you able to see my screen?
Okay. So yes. You want to go on
the
screen maybe? Yeah.
So when it comes to enterprise blockchain, right? I mean, it has come a long way. What it used to be a concept has become a reality. Many of the speakers have spoken. It started with experimentation and exploration. Now what we are talking about is the production grade enterprise blockchain. And at this point of time, we are talking about the economical attractiveness of the blockchain, right? These are becoming business focused and outcome driven, right? The Everest Group has said recently the enterprises are increasingly adopting blockchain and distributed ledger technologies to enhance privacy, accountability, effectiveness, and confidence in their transactions. And it's a new way of engaging with the various stakeholders, right, in the multi-party environment. If you look into the 7 tech trend, which are actually catalyzing the blockchain and Web3 adoption, and everything is underpinned by the trusted and multi-party data, right? That is where blockchain comes into, because it creates a trusted and transparent ecosystem amongst the multi-party ecosystem, right? So like the whole organizations and several countries are going for their net zero transition. United Nations Development Program have 17 sustainable development goals. And if you look into that, to those 17 sustainable development goals, many of these could be achieved with the blockchain. Blockchain is one of the most important enabling technology for sustainability, right from supply chain resiliency to supply chain financing to circularity of those supply chain, right? The tokenization of the green energy certificates, all those things. It's important technology which is impacting the positively impacting the sustainability. Some of you spoke about Metaverse. Metaverse, it's not that digital avatar, just monkeys around in form of avatar, right? They would supposed to do a meaningful work in terms of the value exchange, right? Doing the transactions. Edge computing, right? I mean, in the manufacturing workflow or even at your home, there could be several connected devices, right? And in the real digital economy, many or all of those connected devices are going to have digital identity, right? And some of you spoke about the digital identity and wallet, right? So all of these are actually going to kind of further fuel the blockchain and Web3 adoption. The current the buzz around the generative AI, right? Now think about it. If with the help of generative AI you have created a very unique art, how can you monetize it, right? How can you make sure that whatever the generative AI has built, whether those are responsible, trusted, explainable, right? So these are the area when blockchain would definitely positively impact, right? Now, if some of you spoke about Web3, right? The journey to Web3 actually depends on the certainty of identity, like to make sure who is the person who is doing the transactions, right? Until unless you know, it's very difficult to do the secured and secure transaction, right? In the digital economy, the certainty of provenance, like when this what was the transaction which happened, when it happened, right? How did it happen, and the actual value which was exchanged. No, the reason I'm talking about this identity, traceability, and value. This is how the overall use cases are being evolving in the context of organization, right? And that is how within my organization also we see that all the use cases in the enterprise context are actually kind of fitting around digital assets tokenization, digital identity or credential, and supply chain provenance, right? Think about just taking an example of digital asset, right? Or tokenization. Now, according to one estimate, the approximate value of overall asset, when I talk about asset, is not only the real world asset, but also the security asset and all this, right? The approximate value is about 1,000 trillion. Now, even if you are able to tokenize 2% of those assets, all the real world asset and the digital asset, this is the market would be for about 200 billion, and that is up for grab, right? Some of you talked about the central bank digital currency or EURP. Now, out of I mean, almost 140 countries are actually experimenting on the central bank digital currency, including our country, right? And that is actually underpinned by blockchain and DLT technology. Coming to digital identity, I mean, New York State has issued 12 million credentials for its citizens, and several citizen programs are actually based on the digital credential issued to the citizens, right? Even some of states in our country is actually evaluating that digital identity and credential-based citizen services, right? And again, supply chain provenance is the most would say, the matured use cases within the blockchain in the enterprise context, whether it is supply chain transparency and resiliency, traceability of the asset when it moves from, like say from supplier to OEMs, right? The provenance of various materials, the compliance, various compliance, regulatory compliance. So like consider the example of EV, this right, green energy transition, right, or electric vehicle transition. Now you really need to make sure that the materials which are being used in the batteries are actually sustainably sourced, and those are the authentic materials. So entire battery traceability can also be on the blockchain. The trade finance is a very good use case on the blockchain, right? So and everything is actually underpinned on the sustainability. In the last COP27, one of the blockchain-enabled platform which was built by IBM Fast Infra, right? Financial assistance for sustainable transition, which actually brings all the participants on the blockchain to make sure that the project which is being built, right, is for the sustainable goal, and actually it makes it easy for the project to be kind of financed by the various financiers. Right? So that's the Fast Infra platform that was recently launched by IBM and some of the other ecosystem parameters. So if you look into the today's world, right, a blockchain is being adopted. And when I say it is not about only the experimentation, but actually I'm talking about the production grade blockchain, which is actually catering to generating the business outcome, right? And when I say business outcome, how can I improve the efficiency within the organization? How can I reduce the cost? Right? How can I overall reduce the supply chain cost by say X percentage? Right? How can I reduce the settlement time from T+5 to to almost a real time? Right? So those kind of business outcome is being discussed now, and this spans across several industries, right? Almost all industries and multiple domains. Talking about the supply chain, many of you would have heard about the food trust. It's a very well-known blockchain platform launched by IBM from farm to fork, right? The entire the food could be traced back to the origin at the farm, right? One of the blockchain platform which we recently implemented for one of the home improvement retailer in the North America, right? And they're using the blockchain platform to collaborate with the suppliers, right? So all the shipment from the supplier to OEM is traced and tracked at various points, right? And the discrepancy in terms of what was shipped and what was received and what is invoiced is actually tracked and kind of reconciled in the real time. Now, at this point of almost 500 suppliers are actually onboarded on the network, and they plan to onboard up to 5,000. One of the popular, very well known blockchain platform some of you might have heard about, the MineHub in the mining industry, is the digitalization of entire ecosystem from mine to market, right? So there's quite a several use cases are actually being implemented in the enterprise context, and those are actually generating very good business outcome for the specific organization. In the context of global trade, recently Japan exchange, right, has done the tokenization of the rubber or the commodity, right? And again, the very evident business outcome is the almost real-time settlement of the commodity. Now this can easily be kind of extended to the security tokenization itself, right? You would have heard about the Musk, one of the early adopter of the blockchain. They use blockchain for the terminal activity reconciliation at various shipping port. Right? For in the context of in Europe, like the from OEM to actually the distributor and the retailer, right? The entire shipment or logistics of vehicle, car, which are being shipped at each and every point from OEM to logistics service provider to TPS to actual showroom, the entire traceability of the car is actually being tracked on the blockchain. Right? The trade promotion, right from proof of alignment to proof of performance, is actually being managed at the blockchain platform. Right? The payment in the supply chain, overall payment from procurement to payment, everything can be tracked on the blockchain and several organizations have implemented in this. I mentioned about in context of digital identity. New York State has issued almost 12 million credentials for their citizens, and in fact, several universities in the United States are actually using those blockchain-enabled credentials. Right? So there's several use cases in context of the in financial market. Right? The bank guarantee is actually digitalized. And right from issuance to the settlement is actually done on the blockchain. And Ligon is one of the, for Ligon, we implemented this, and this is actually being, this is actually implemented in the ANG market, right, Australian and New Zealand market. So you could see that across the industries and across the domain, we have the enterprise grade blockchain, and those are actually thriving, and new use cases are actually emerging, right? So with that, I'll stop and I'll welcome if you would have any question.
Thanks for that, Prawesh. A lot of information packed into the short presentation. One question I have is that, all right, so we look at the transformational story, we look at gaming and blockchain in Web3 and Metaverse in the form of NFTs, etc., crypto, all of that stuff. But there is some bad name to the technology itself in terms of environmental impacts and environmental sustainability. It's perceived that blockchain guzzles a lot of energy. So how do you think blockchain can become more environment friendly? I mean, what are the things that our industry is already doing?
So at one hand, I think, yeah, I mean, some of the protocol or framework has, I mean, it was kind of tagged as something which is consuming a lot of energy, but there are several protocols which are actually consuming less energy, right? And you know the platform, whether it is Hyperledger Fabric or some of the newer ones like Hedera Hashgraph and all. But I wouldn't go into that. What I touched upon in the beginning, right? When you talk about sustainability, it's like it's a sustainable supply chain to sustainable financing to the recircularity to making the to make energy certificate more liquid, right? So there's if you look into the 17th Sustainable Development Goal of the United Nations Development Program, those are very broad-based, right? And many of those could be only achieved when you implement inclusion, when you have the trust and transparency in the reporting of the climate data. And that is where blockchain is one of the very important enabling technology. So we really need to, I mean, at one hand, would be kind of one way of looking at it, that some of the protocols are consuming more energy, but in the other hand, there's so many avenues where it actually positively impacting.
Yeah, that's right. I think, I mean, from my knowledge, I mean, and my knowledge is limited to layman's level about blockchain. The protocols that you're talking about, where trust is the most important factor, they guzzle the most amount of energy, and the more enterprise use cases like the ones you probably normally deal with are not that energy guzzling. I mean, they are just like other applications. Is that right to assume?
Yeah, there are various protocols, right? Some are like Ethereum and all started with proof of work, which is more energy consuming, like but proof of consensus and others are like or endorsement based doesn't consume a lot of energy, right? So that is certainly one thing, right? But you would need to look into the broader perspective, right? And again, it has to be the whatever you use, it has to be in the context of the use case. Now, one of the trilemma of the blockchain is like if you look into three factors: decentralization, security, and scalability. Now, at this point of time, since technology itself is evolving, we solve two problems, but a third we'd have to compromise, right? So basically, now we are talking about when you talk about private blockchain or public blockchain. Now, what we suggest is that you should actually, and again, depending on the use case, you should go for hybrid blockchain. When you keep the your trade secret, right, the very secure data in the private blockchain, but you would certainly need the big population or mass population for the liquidity and the monetization of those things, right? So you need public blockchain as well. So basically, make a bridge between private and public with that interoperability and interledger protocol, and basically do the transaction. So that is what is hybrid blockchain. So that is where the world is moving.
All right, thanks for that, Prawesh. So we'll move over to the next topic. In the interest of time, I think we are running a bit late, quite late, I think. What I'll propose is that we go with Bhutesh's presentation now, and at the end, we do a quick one with Girish's Web3 identity. Is that fine, Bhutesh and Girish?
Yeah, sounds good to me, Manas.
All right, Bhutesh, over to you.
Yeah, Manas, thank you. And like you said, now we are running a little bit late, and the onus is on me to have an interesting session.
Yeah,
so
and your topic is very interesting. Your topic is very interesting.
So I'll keep it really short, but the main key takeaway from my session would be, as a entrepreneur, as a business leader, as an industry leader, what should you do? So you already heard of blockchain, you already have heard of metaverse and all those things. So my session will help you to give a thought on what you should do if you are an industry leader. So let me share my screen. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Yeah, so broadly, blockchain integration with the metaverse and AI. So you already have heard from our past speakers about blockchain, their use cases and technology. So I'll bring into you what exactly the metaverse is and what we should be doing. So this is my agenda, only the 4 topic: understanding, and then we'll explore what metaverse is. Then I'll converge what blockchain, what metaverse, what AI, NFT is in terms of metaverse. And then we'll discuss small business implications, what we should be doing as a business leader as of today. So understanding, so I'll again not go into blockchain, that's already explained. The technology is already explained by my past speakers. I'll take a small time about AI. What is artificial intelligence and what are we doing as of today? So artificial intelligence, as definition says, simulation of human intelligence in machines, enabling them to perform tasks, learn from data, and make decisions with minimal human intervention. So that's what we call it as artificial intelligence. So now, if you talk about an example, so is Google search an AI? Let's say I am searching in Google. I want to have a burger. So if I search in Google about burger, it will give me a list of options where I can go. It may give me a list of available shops or available restaurants near me where I can go and buy burger. But the decision lies with me where I can go and from where I should eat. But if I go on with any artificial intelligence technology, they will suggest what kind of burger I should be eating. So there's a question. So search versus ask. So that means artificial intelligence will decide for you. If I will tell, write me a paragraph in Google, Google will give me a link. So that's a search engine where I can search from. If I ask the same question to AI, that will write for me. It will take decisions for me. So that's what we call it AI. And in top of AI, there is some more buzzwords coming now. That means in the market, generative AI. Generative AI means it will not only decide for you, it will generate also. So let's say I am sitting here in my office and I am delivering a speech, and I want my AI to generate my image sitting on a moon. So AI will generate images. I have never been to moon, but AI will generate an image where I will be sitting in a moon. So that's artificial intelligence and generative artificial intelligence, which we'll be using in Metaverse. Now let's move on to Metaverse. So like again, Metaverse debate is not fulfilled if we don't introduce or debate on Web 2 and Web 3. Girish has initially defined what Web 2 is, what Web 1 was, what Web 2 was, and what Web 3 is. So I'll give a very small perspective. So in Web 3 and Web 2, ownership and control. So like Girish already told, the control in Web 3 remains with the user, not with any agencies or any organization. So that's the difference between Web 2 and Web 3. Then we come to interconnectivity. So this is a part of a metaverse, not exactly Web 2. So here, in terms of interconnectivity, in Web 2, our transactions, our interaction with the internet is isolated. That means if I'm sitting right now here doing some transactions, doing some interactions with the Web 2, that is isolated. That means only I can see or only I can use it. In terms of Web 3, whatever you will be doing will be part of the system where other users can also see and feel. So the changes we will be doing in Web 3 will be in real time. So that's the major difference in terms of interconnectivity. And trust and transparency. Again, this topic has already been covered. Since right now all the servers, all the data are centralized, in Web 3, this process or data storage or ledger will be decentralized. That means a person or user will have greater trust and transparency in terms of Web 3. So now again, if I have to define a metaverse, what is a metaverse? So metaverse is a virtual reality space that allows users to interact with a computer generated environment and other users in real time. Like I emphasis in the word real time. This is not a gaming. In game, the interaction is not real time, but here the interaction will be real time, creating a shared immersive experience. That means, like I discussed, the photos, the images that I have generated will be a real time and I can share, or it will be visible to other people as well. So I'll explain you this term with all the technologies of Web3 combined together. So what happens if I converge? Let's say we have a blockchain technology that has been going on. We are again using the word metaverse. Then we are we have been using AI. Then ChatGPT came. Then Google Bard came. Then Baidu is doing an AI. Then we are talking about NFTs. Then we are talking about AR, VR. So what are all those things? So the technology behind Web3 is that we may use in future is AI. Then we club it with blockchain. Then we club it with VR. So VR, which has not been discussed as of now, is a virtual reality. So virtual reality is accessible through your VR headset. So whenever you wear a VR headset, you will immerse or you will land into a different virtually simulated world where you can interact with other users, other people. So the Web3 will also have a VR technology. Again, AR. So now VR will have a headset where you can go into a environment. AR is that you will bring that environment to your own. Let's say you are standing in your house. You can bring the technology and mix it with the house environment. So that's called AR, and mixture of both AR and VR are called MR, mixed reality. And NFT. So if we combine and use all this technology in metaverse, what can we achieve? So I have a small video to show what future metaverse will look like, where most of the people are working on. It's a small 2-minute video. Please have a look and try to understand the concept of metaverse. So, like I have tried to explain through videos. So whenever we mature in terms of metaverse, we may have numerous virtual environments like this. There may be buildings, shopping malls, properties, education, hospitals, consultation, educational session, institutes, online, where you can virtually go and interact with the internet. So this kind of virtual world are being made in terms of metaverse, where it is not accessible not only through VR headset but also through web browser. So that's a kind of a world metaverse where which the lots of companies or startups are trying to build today. The technology that supports are Unity engines, Unreal engines, and then blockchain supported by the blockchain technology. Then the designs and items having NFT and ownership, and that ownership attributed to the creator or designers in Web3 infrastructure. So that's a kind of a metaverse concept that we envision of a Web3. Now, you talking about infrastructure, since this is a virtual world, same like in Web2, the Web2 infrastructure, if you want to have a website built, you may have to approach a developer, HTML developer, CSS developer, the backend coding, maybe C++, maybe PHP, depending upon the technology you choose, but that infrastructure has to be developed. So in terms of Web3 infrastructure, like Rohit had said, we are in a very early stage. We can consider Web3 infrastructure as a Web2 infrastructure of 1990s, early 90s, or it is at that nascent stage. So again, the total market size that has been estimated is around 32 USD billion dollars as of 2022, which the growth that most of the researchers foresee will go to around $80 billion in next 4 to 5 years. So that's the infrastructure market that has been pegged by most of the researchers. Now, let's talk about business implication. Okay, now we have technologies, we have VR, we have blockchain, we have NFTs. Now, as a business leader, what should you be doing today is the biggest question. So before going to business, again, this technology has some limitations also. Like starting again, Rohit has told, UX, user experience and accessibility through apps and browsers for metaverse is a challenge. Since the technology has not developed yet, like I can access Google or YouTube from my browser. So there are certain technologies that is accessible, that Web3 makes Web3 accessible through browser, but again, it has very limited capabilities, because of which we today foresee Web3 metaverse as a cartoon and video games. So as this technology develops, we will have more interactive UX, apps and browsers where we will have more immersive experience in future. Scalability, like the basic limitation here with Web3 or the metaverse is government policy. So again, the government policy more or less revolves around the use of decentralized finance. None of the government agencies in the world plan to lose control on the currency. So there has always been a fight whether that currency dominance will be by crypto or by government controlled central digital currencies. Again, so we have to wait and watch what how this policy turns around, and which currency will dominate this Web3 space. Then the most and the biggest limitation is the cost. So if you are a business leader and thinking to implement any of the technology or a metaverse concept into a business, the one of the major part that has to be taken care is the cost. The cost of building a simple virtual showroom runs into crores of rupees as of today. By advancement of technology, I hope this cost comes down in future. But as of today, the cost is one of the major concerns for business leaders to move on to Web3 and give a better customer experience to their user experience to their customers. So if I have to summarize, what is Metaverse? So Metaverse is the internet, but in 3D. So you will be inside the environment, you will be inside the metaverse, you will be inside the building, inside the showroom. If you have an e-commerce website, people may come as an avatar and see your product and then buy. If you are a game, people may be having immersive experience. If you are a developer,
Bhutesh, you got muted.
Yeah. So concluding metaverse, like in layman terms, is the internet but in 3D. So now the question to business leaders, we as the generation already missed wave 2. Today, some may think that what if I have started Google in India in 1998? What if I have started Alibaba in India? If I have started Amazon, Microsoft in India? So anyway, the chance gone is always gone. So what about wave 3? So like Rohit said, we are in a very nascent stage, but who are the business leaders or entrepreneurs who are into the passion to develop something new should definitely look out for metaverse options. But yeah, there are certain limitations which will always make your life tough in terms of business implication. Yeah, same thing we are doing in InterioVerse, trying to make a metaverse for interior designers, but that's not the part of this session. So maybe in future I'll have the opportunity to discuss again. So the last, the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. That's it from me, Manas, in terms of metaverse.
Thank you, Bhutesh. So I'm trying to imagine Amazon or Flipkart, I mean, basically any e-commerce site of the future, let's say 5 years hence when Metaverse has set in and we are having a different experience of Amazon or Flipkart, any e-commerce site with Web3. So would we have to, how will it look like, and would we need the VR glasses for that?
Yeah, interesting, Manas. So I think the main challenge for VR industry is the cost of VR glass. The cost, which right now cost around 50,000 INR and more than that, so is not affordable by general public. So because of that, most of the metaverse has limited VR as of today, and that is accessible through website, web browser. So the same thing we are doing in InterioVerse. So that's a metaverse for interior designing, where users can access our portal through web browsers. You can have a Google browser, Google Chrome, Microsoft, Mozilla, or anyone. So that accessibly, but you will have a 3D effect again in the browser. So if you have a VR headset, you will have more immersive experience. But if you don't have, that's also even fine. You can even access the portal and see it.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that, Bhutesh. Very interesting. So with that, we will go to the last topic of the day with Girish talking about digital identity.
Hey, Manas.
Hey, welcome again.
So Manas, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Are you Manas?
I think so.
I am Manas. It's not you. You're not Manas. I'm Manas. What makes you say that you're Manas?
Okay, I know I am Manas, but to prove it to you, I have to show you some kind of identity.
Exactly. You know, if you actually look at every interaction we do in the world today, it is based on our identity. Okay? And it is such an important topic that, you know, because there's a whole bunch of, concepts around identity, right? And it is so personal to us. We are very protective of our identity, right? Obviously, that's the only way in which we are recognized. So in this session, we'll take a look at identity and we'll try to see some of the problems we have today, some of the solutions that are being tried, but I still feel that it's an unsolved problem. Okay, so a quick, let me share my screen quickly. All right. Okay, so what is identity today, right? From the day you are born, your identity starts. You are given a birth certificate that identifies your name and when you were born. And then when you finish your education, you get a certificate which identifies your skill. And based on these, you are given employment. If you go to a bank, they will ask you for identity. If you need to open an account, you need to provide your Aadhaar card maybe or a passport which identifies you personally. And you also need to give your PAN card, which identifies your tax ID, right, for taxation purposes. So all these are different forms of identification that basically authenticates who you are. All right. So identity can actually be for two things. One is a personal identity, which identifies us as individuals. And the second part is an identity that identifies things, machines, devices, or even property, right? So all these are different identification methods in which we try to prove that something is what it says it is, or someone is who he says he is. Okay. The challenge with identity so far is that it is purely centralized. Okay, again we come to the concept of centralization. We have a single point of failure. Take our Aadhaar. What happens if the Aadhaar server is hacked? Okay, no matter how secure we try to make it, no matter how many firewalls we try to put around it, there will always be some point of failure and it can get hacked. Now, if it gets hacked, what happens? Obviously, your privacy is compromised. People will know who you are, where is your address, right? They will be able to identify, they'll basically steal your identity. And this brings a whole bunch of security risks. Security risk can be in the form of, your bank account being compromised using your identity, right? So there is a big challenge in how to keep identity secure. If you go to this site called Have I Been Pawned, okay, haveibeenpawned.com, just go there, put in your email address. It will show you how many websites have been compromised where you have used that particular email address. And basically what it is telling you is that these websites, you had an account there and the whole database, the user database has been hacked. So the hackers have access to your email ID, maybe some personal information like your first name, last name, and in worst cases, maybe they may even have access to critical things like your password if it has been stored as plain text. What can people do with this? They can spam you. I mean, one of the worst things that can happen, that we see in India is that you go buy a new SIM card, brand new, and by the time you come home, you already have a spam message on it. How? Who is leaking this number to someone else so that they can start spamming you with a brand new SIM card? I mean, I'm actually shocked, right? Is it the issuer himself who is, leaking this data? Otherwise, where is it coming from? So what this whole thing is saying is that with the current system, the present identity system, there is complete lack of control over our own personal information. Other people are misusing it. And if we have to go to some services where you need to prove your identity, the whole verification process is fragmented. Okay, some people ask for your password, for your passport. Some people ask for your Aadhaar card. And even with all that, the process is still broken. One example I can give you is that the recent elections, we went to the election booth and there is a whole bunch of people, including us, trying to authenticate that we are eligible to vote. But despite having a valid Aadhaar card, valid voter ID, whatever, the number of documents mentioned on the website that are eligible for voting, people are still waiting, saying that, they are not able to vote. So we have these kind of challenges with centralized identity systems today. And Web3, because it's a decentralized system, people are trying to come up with innovative ways in which you can control your own identity and not have to rely on a central third party. But still there are challenges and we'll see what that is at the end. But let me just describe what we mean by decentralized identity. Imagine that, okay, before we even go there, where do you keep your identity today? Okay, you have your identity sitting in your wallet, right? Maybe in the form of your Aadhaar card or maybe your PAN card, right? Now imagine if you go online, you have a similar wallet with your identity stored in it. What happens in this scenario? The entire ownership and control comes in your hand. Okay. And whenever you need to identify yourself to a third party, especially in the Web3 ecosystem, you will not expose any of your personal information. You will simply do some activity which proves that you have authentic identity information which says you are who you are without exposing. Because today, if you go to buy a SIM card, you will give your Aadhaar card, or let's say you're traveling and you go to a hotel, you still need to give your Aadhaar card. They'll ask for your Aadhaar. They will make a Xerox copy. Now your entire identity is leaked, right? There is no protection here. They can misuse that identity information. But in the Web3 world, what happens is you do some action which just proves that you have a valid Aadhaar card with your name on it without showing the Aadhaar card itself. Okay? That is the technology that Web3 is bringing to identity. You prove who you are without exposing any private information. And the best part is that this information sits on an immutable database. So when we say immutable, it simply means that once the identity is logged on the blockchain, it cannot be tampered with, it cannot be modified, right? So this flexibility brings a whole bunch of use cases where the identity you have in your wallet can interoperate with multiple systems without a fragmented process. Okay, it's not like somebody is asking you for PAN card and then you go to do something else and there they ask for Aadhaar, and for something else they ask you for your passport. No, you have a common identity and that is interoperable across multiple services and systems. Now the challenge here is, there's still a challenge here, which is who is guaranteeing that your identity which you say exists in your blockchain account is the correct identity? Like I asked Manas, what makes you say that you are Manas and I'm not Manas? So that is happening because he says, I have proof. I have an Aadhaar card to prove that, you know, there is my photo and there is my name mentioned on it with my date of birth and all this data, which is issued by the government. Now, this is very important. Who is saying that you are who you are? It is the government. And by social contract, we are trusting that anything issued by the government is valid. Okay? Even with Web3 now, if I am trying to say I am who I am, for certain use cases, you don't need to have a verification process. For example, if I'm trying to send you money from my wallet to your wallet, I do it using my account and what is known as a private key, basically a password for my account. Here, I really don't need to prove who I am. As long as I'm able to send this money, it simply means that I have access to my account. But if we try to look at a voter system on blockchain, okay, a voting system on the blockchain, if I come up with some identity and say, this is who I am, will you accept my vote? What if I create 100 such identities and try to vote? How will you validate that this identity is genuine? So here we still need a central authority. That is a problem which is not yet solved. We still need the government where the verification is done once. And then you use this identity without, while preserving your privacy, you can now authenticate with multiple services. Okay, verify once with the government or one authority and then use it without compromising your privacy. That is what Web3 identity is as of today. Okay, so how do you actually use this identity? Now I'm coming down to a bit of practical implementation. How is this actually used? Now most of your identity is sitting in your wallet in the real world, right? In your wallet, what do you hold? You hold your money, you have your rupees or dollars or whatever, and then you also hold your credit cards. You may hold your Aadhaar card, your PAN card, right? All this information is there in a physical wallet today. Now imagine the same wallet in digital form. Very simple. These digital wallets will hold your money in the form of cryptocurrency. They will hold your assets like your credentials, your certificates, maybe your land ownership records, maybe your health records in the form of non-fungible tokens, which are basically unique tokens. Okay. And this wallet, you will be able to unlock it with your password, fingerprint, face ID, whatever you use today. You can use similar mechanisms to unlock the wallet. because the data is encrypted. And only when you need to prove your identity to someone, you perform a transaction in your wallet with that particular entity, which proves that you actually have your identity in this wallet. Okay, so let's say you want to prove to someone that your land record, it's there in your wallet, but you don't want to disclose all the details of how much money you spent on that. You don't want to show a sale deed, but you still want to prove that this land belongs to you. You can do it by simply doing a simple privacy preserving transaction. That is where we are today with identity. Okay, so the whole ecosystem of Web2 and Web3, everything starts with your identity. In the Web2 world, we are using our usernames or email and password to use different services. In the Web3 ecosystem, we are using a wallet, a blockchain-based wallet. So, like you saw how the metaverse is. Let us say you go into the metaverse using the headsets which Apple released yesterday, the virtual reality pro or something like that. You wear it, you go into the metaverse, and you see a nice shop where you want to buy something. What will you do? You go to that shop, you prove your identity, or you spend money using your digital wallet. Okay, so I'm just trying to show you how it works from a practical perspective. Now, if you want to learn more, because I don't want to drag this here, if you want to learn more, there are some projects and frameworks which are working on a lot of these use cases. The ones you see on the left, Votes, Agora, and Votem, they are trying to solve the voting problem. Okay, and Consensus is a pretty big organization in the Web3 ecosystem. They're really big in the kind of projects they're executing, the kind of industry types they're doing. Similar to what IBM is doing, you saw the presentation where IBM is doing a lot of projects, Accenture is doing. So there are a lot of companies who are working on these identity projects. And what are these projects? They can be land records, they can be health records, they can be voting systems. All this is being done in the Web3 industry today. So you can just go ahead. I've given just a few examples so that it gives you a starting point to explore. Inficert is something that we are doing to bring university credentials on the blockchain. But again, like I said, it is not a completely solved problem. There is still someone who needs to verify that this certificate, let's say, a university issues a certificate. We still need the university to prove that, yes, this is issued by me. So there is still a central authority that's coming into play. On the right-hand side, what you see are frameworks. So Microsoft Entra ID, Veramo, Sovereign, and there are a few more, where if you are interested to get into Web3 and you wish to build an identity solution around, the Web3, you can use some of these frameworks. All right. So this is a high-level overview of how identity works in the Web3 ecosystem and how you can get started. So I'll open it up for questions, Manas.
Yeah, that was good, Girish. Very lucidly explained. We already know that you love teaching, and your explanations are always very good, very lucid for any layman to understand. All right. Okay. So I was just wondering that is it kind of imaginable that Aadhaar can sometime be on blockchain?
Yes, extremely important question. This is something we need to ask because, as I said, we still need a central authority who says this is an identity of a person, right? Now, what we need to do here is, if we need the ecosystem to really evolve, the identity on the blockchain has to be end-to-end. It cannot be something where the government says, no, we will not support blockchain. We are still going to issue physical cards. And then you do whatever you want. And then we try to come up with some kind of a, jugaad solution to use this Aadhaar card on the blockchain. It's not going to work. The issuance has to happen directly by the central authority. They need to come on the blockchain. And then they give us a solution wherein the identity is automatically linked to our blockchain account and which we can start using with different services without exposing this identity. That technology is already available. We can authenticate without exposing private data. But getting this data itself, we still need an answer to that.
All right. Okay. Yeah, platforms like Aadhaar authentication and the digital what is that, DigiLocker, etc. can definitely be on blockchain and bring in a lot of efficiency there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so we'll pause for a moment if there is any question. I don't see any. So Ravindra Shah, sir, good comments. Thank you for that. So we'll pause for a moment for any other question. Right. Dr. Devrajan, any last words to conclude the session?
I think it was a very, very useful meeting. I think we need more time to understand. There's a lot of case studies coming in and doubts on security, things like that is still happening. I think more and more applications, faster we use it, better we get, I think. Otherwise we lose again an opportunity of getting into more, like what Girish did mention about identity. It is very, very crucial for all the companies between suppliers and OEM, the individual users of, especially in a vehicle, individual users of a vehicle, and data on the usage pattern of the vehicle, and then link up with the insurance. I think there are so many opportunities of business and so many opportunities of accuracy of data and secrecy of data too. And finally, I think data is money and individual identity is more than that. You know, I think that's the one I learned about it. Thank you very much, Manas. Thank you, Girish, Bhutesh, Prawesh. Excellent. And I think this is very, very making innovative mind in our mind say that we need to learn more and apply this in practice. Thank you very much. And I request you also one of these days to come to TVS Motor and share some of these ideas to us in the entire company also. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
sir. Our pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Prawesh, Bhutesh, Girish, Rohit had to drop off early. Thanks to you. Thanks for coming to our session and explaining this very interesting topics. Each one were very interesting perspectives and very, very, very trendy, contemporary topics with a lot of future holding behind each of them. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Manas and BCIC for this session. It was really helpful in terms of other speakers and knowledge they have shared. Really nice for all the speakers and BCIC again. Thank you.
And best of luck with InfiBridge, Girish, and Bhutesh. Best of luck with InterioVerse. We'll be looking forward to seeing how they progress and get a lot of success with them. Best of luck, Prawesh, as well. And again, heartfelt thanks to all the BCIC chamber staff for making this happen. Rupa, thank you. Pushot,
thank you.
Everyone who supported.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good day.